Have you ever stopped to realize that a staggering 85% of the things we constantly worry about never actually happen in reality? Yet we spend countless sleepless nights trying to micromanage every single detail of our lives, as if we hold the weight of the entire world on our shoulders. Why do we stubbornly cling to the heavy illusion of control when it only leaves us feeling completely exhausted and overwhelmed? What if the profound breakthrough you have been desperately searching for is not found in trying harder, but in finally letting go? Imagine the overwhelming relief that would wash over your entire being if you truly placed your fears, your relationships, and your fragile future into the hands of the Creator. It sounds like a beautifully simple concept, but in reality, it challenges every single instinct within us that demands absolute certainty and immediate answers. Most people readily say they believe in a higher power, but the very moment life becomes unpredictable, paralyzing fear completely takes over our hearts. Today, we are going to journey together through 6 deeply profound transformations that begin to take place the exact moment you choose to trust God completely. These are not just temporary emotional fixes or surface-level changes that fade away by tomorrow morning. These are deep, life-altering shifts that will fundamentally reshape your thoughts, your daily decisions, and your lasting peace. By the time we reach the end of this message, you will not only understand what true surrender looks like, but you will clearly recognize how it transforms your entire existence from the inside out. Let us begin with the very first beautiful shift that takes place when you surrender completely. Number 1, you experience unexplainable peace. When you make the conscious decision to trust God completely, one of the very first things you will notice is a quiet stillness entering your soul. This is not the fragile kind of peace that depends on everything going perfectly, your way or your bank account being full. This is a deep, steady, supernatural calm that remains completely unshaken, even when the storm around you is raging out of control. The sacred scriptures in Philippians chapter 4, verse 7 call this a peace that surpasses all human understanding. It does not always make logical sense to the people around you, and that is exactly why it is so incredibly powerful. Situations that would have once caused you intense anxiety and sleepless nights no longer have the power to control your thoughts. You still clearly see the reality of the problem in front of you, but you are no longer entirely consumed by it. Instead of constantly worrying, overthinking every scenario, and trying to fix everything in your own limited strength, you begin to release those heavy burdens through earnest prayer. You start truly believing that God is already working tirelessly, behind the scenes, even when your human eyes cannot see any immediate results. This profound peace does not come from knowing the final outcome of your situation. It comes from intimately knowing that God is in complete control of the outcome. That single perspective shift changes everything about how you respond to daily stress pressure and heavy uncertainty. Once you experience this divine kind of peace, you quickly realize it is something the world could never give you, and therefore the world can never take it away from you. It becomes a permanent anchor for your weary soul, holding you perfectly steady no matter what heavy trials come your way. Number 2, you completely let go of control. Trusting God with all your heart means intentionally releasing your tight grip on the desperate need to control every single outcome. This is undoubtedly one of the hardest things for any human being to do, because control often gives us a false sense of safety. We foolishly think that if we plan enough, analyze enough, or work ourselves to exhaustion, we can somehow secure the exact future we want. But Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 gently reminds us to trust in the Lord with all our heart and lean not on our own limited understanding. That means gracefully accepting that we will not always know how things will work out, and choosing to trust His goodness anyway. You finally stop trying to force closed doors to open, and you stop desperately chasing after things that were never meant for you. You naturally become more patient, more spiritually aware, and more willing to wait for God's perfect timing, instead of rushing ahead of Him. Letting go of control does not mean you sit back and do absolutely nothing with your life. It means doing your absolute best with what you can change while fully trusting God with the things you cannot control. It means taking bold action when you feel spiritually led and having the wisdom to step back when it is necessary. When you finally release that exhausting control, you immediately begin to feel lighter than you have in years. The crushing pressure to figure out the rest of your life completely fades away, and in its place comes a quiet, unshakable confidence. You can finally breathe deeply because you know God is handling what you humanly cannot. Number 3, your faith becomes significantly stronger through difficult trials. Trusting God completely does not mean your life will suddenly be free from pain or difficulties, but it completely changes the way you experience and process those difficult seasons. Instead of viewing trials as unfair setbacks that ruin your life, you begin to see them as an essential part of your spiritual growth. James chapter 1 verse 3 teaches us that the testing of your faith produces perseverance, and perseverance shapes you into someone much stronger. Before this transformation, unexpected challenges may have completely shaken your confidence and made you question everything. Now, those very same challenges only serve to deepen your roots and make you unmovable. Instead of immediately crying out in frustration and asking, "Why is this horrible thing happening to me?" you begin to lean in and ask, "What is God teaching my heart through this painful experience?" That subtle shift in your perspective is incredibly powerful. It beautifully turns your deepest pain into a grand purpose. It transforms your daily frustration into lasting spiritual growth. You begin to notice that every single difficult season you survive carries something incredibly valuable inside it. It leaves you with greater patience, deeper wisdom, and a much stronger faith. And over time, you realize that the very situations you once feared the most are the exact tools God used to build your character. Your trust grows, not because life suddenly became easier, but because you have personally seen God carry you through what you thought would break you. Number 4, you completely stop living in constant fear of the future. One of the greatest freedoms that comes from trusting God is being liberated from the constant anxiety about what lies ahead. The future often feels completely overwhelming to us because it is entirely unknown. We constantly torture ourselves with questions like, what if things do not work out? What if I fail miserably? Or what if everything falls apart? But when you choose to trust God completely, your entire perspective shifts toward heaven. Matthew chapter 6, verse 34 reminds us not to worry about tomorrow, because each day has enough trouble of its own. More importantly, it reminds us that God is already standing in your tomorrow, waiting for you. You stop wasting your precious mental energy trying to predict and prepare for every single possible negative outcome. You stop allowing the toxic what-if thoughts to control your mind and steal your daily peace. Instead, you begin to rest deeply in the absolute truth that no matter what happens, God will be right there with you in the midst of it. This does not mean you stop making wise plans or caring about your future goals. It simply means you stop fearing the unknown. You move forward into each new day with a quiet confidence, knowing that your life is not random or spinning out of control. The future completely stops feeling like a scary wilderness you have to somehow survive. It starts feeling like a beautiful promise you can walk into with expectant faith. Number 5, you become deeply obedient to God's direction. True trust and radical obedience are deeply connected to one another. When you truly trust the character of God, you become far more willing to follow His direction, even when it does not make any sense to your human logic. Isaiah chapter 1 verse 19 promises that if you are willing and obedient, you will experience the good things of the land. You begin to recognize His still small voice more clearly, whether it comes through sacred scripture, inner conviction, or a quiet prompting in your spirit. And instead of hesitating or making excuses, you respond with immediate action. Sometimes that obedience looks like having the courage to step into a completely new and unfamiliar territory. Other times it looks like having the strength to finally let go of something familiar that is no longer good for you. It might mean choosing to forgive someone who deeply hurt you when it is incredibly hard to do so, or it might mean choosing absolute integrity when it would be so much easier to compromise. Each small step of obedience strengthens your trust muscle even more. You begin to see clearly that God's direction was never meant to restrict your freedom or make you miserable. It was always meant to protect you and lead you into something infinitely better. The more you obey His guidance, the more you realize that God's plans are always higher, wiser, and far more fulfilling than your own wildest dreams. Number 6, you see God move in miraculous ways you never could have expected. When you fully trust God and stop trying to play the hero of your own story, you create space for Him to work in ways that defy human imagination. Ephesians chapter 3, verse 20 tells us that God is able to do immeasurably more than all we could ever ask or even think. But so often our human need for control severely limits what we are willing to experience. When you finally release that tight control, you begin to witness incredible things happen that you could never have planned on your own. Doors of opportunity suddenly open at the exact right time when you least expect it. Blessings and favor come from completely unexpected places and people. Difficult situations suddenly shift in ways that clearly show the unmistakable hand of God at work. You also begin to notice the smaller, everyday moments where God is quietly guiding, providing for, and protecting you. Your spiritual awareness increases dramatically. Your daily gratitude deepens profoundly. What once felt completely impossible in your life suddenly becomes a powerful living testimony. What once caused you immense stress and anxiety becomes a beautiful reminder of God's absolute faithfulness. You look back and realize that trusting God did not hold you back from success. It actually allowed you to experience far more joy and fulfillment than you could have ever created on your own. Now let us bring all of these beautiful truths together. Trusting God completely brings a supernatural peace that remains steady even when your life feels entirely uncertain. It completely frees you from the exhausting and heavy need to control every single outcome. It strengthens your faith through difficult challenges instead of allowing them to weaken your spirit. It completely removes the paralyzing fear of the future and replaces it with a steady, unwavering confidence. It leads you into a lifestyle of obedience that perfectly aligns your life with God's divine direction. And it opens the wide door to seeing God move in miraculous ways you never could have anticipated. When you choose to trust God completely, your life does not suddenly become completely perfect or free from trouble, but your life becomes deeply grounded in an unshakable foundation. You completely stop being controlled by fear, stress, and uncertainty, and instead you begin to live every single day with absolute stability, clarity, and divine purpose. If this message spoke directly to your heart today, please take a brief moment to respond. Share this encouraging video with someone in your life who desperately needs comfort right now. And down in the comments section below, write the words, "God, I trust you." Do not just write them as simple words on a screen, but write them as a serious decision you are making today. Continue growing in your faith every single day and stay connected with us for more messages that help you walk with confidence. Trusting God is a lifelong journey that you build one single step at a time. There will surely be moments when choosing trust feels incredibly easy and natural, and there will be moments when it feels like the most challenging thing you have ever done. But every single time you choose trust over fear, you are strengthening your eternal foundation. Psalm 37 verse 5 says, "Commit your way to the Lord, trust in Him, and He will act." That is an absolute divine promise that you can hold on to with all your might. God sees the entire picture that your human eyes cannot see. He is working in beautiful ways that you may not yet fully understand. And as you continue to trust Him completely, you will see His faithfulness show up in your life again and again. You are never alone on this journey. Stay faithful, stay fully surrendered, and keep trusting Him because God is already standing ahead of you in your future.